Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tier 1 at Suzuka. This is going to be exciting. I think we got ourselves a very full grid. 20 drivers on the grid, I hope. 19 drivers for Tier 2. And it is going to be our first sprint race weekend of the calendar. And this sprint race is at Suzuka. Beautiful circuit, one-shot quali, and a 9-lap sprint race before we get into that 27-lap long race. As we do have our first disconnected driver from the lobby, unfortunately. But now drivers are just getting ready for qualifying. I think someone might have just hit go before they could put on a setup. Fortunately, with Park Fermi off, they will be able to still check out that information. Bear with me, folks, whilst I just get my telemetry up. Live timing, there we go. Please do let me know if there are any technical difficulties on the stream. And away we go with qualifying. And it is very difficult, of course, with a one-shot quali. We'll only be able to see one driver at a time. So it'll be very difficult to see who is going to be on pole, who's going to be fighting for pole. At the moment, it's looking like could go Alpine, Zitzi at the very top. Soybean just behind. We'll have to see as they come through now. Oops. There we go. Get all that information up on the screen. So for the first sector, Zitzi with a 31.527. And Marth racing in the Aston Martin in Tier 2, now in the Mercedes for Tier 1. Putting in the fastest first sector. Marth with a 17 thousandths of a second advantage as Soybean has retired from the session. Perhaps invalidated his lap just in the midst of the second sector. And now we come towards 130R, the famous 130R. We've seen a lot of great overtakes in real life. Alonso and Schumacher being the most iconic. And as we come through it, we got Rico into the lead of this race, of this sprint. What am I on about? Qualifying. And across the line comes Rico for pole position, a 126.772. Martha with a 126.773. A 1/1000th of a second gap between P1 and P2 as Gigi Land, for some reason or another, has been put up onto position first place. I think, did he put in the fast lap? No. Not sure he did. Not sure what happened there. But Rico is on pole with a 126.772, 1/1000th of a second gap between P1 and P2, and then a full 1/1000th of a second gap between P2 and P3. Mix, Marth, and Rico all so close together. I've not seen qualifying that close in a very long time. Everyone clearly just a minute and a half off the pace. Gigi Land with a lap time of 0. Absolutely sensational. Unfortunately, Robin McQueen at the back of the grid. Disqualification for invalid lap. That was very intriguing. I'm curious to know now if perhaps the stewards will have to call a red flag in case Gigi Land is put onto pole for some reason. We'll have to find out in just a moment. And the cars aren't bopping in the corner as they were in Tier 2. But nonetheless, this will be quite an exciting race. Nonetheless, sprint race first. So bear with us, folks, whilst the drivers set up. Tyre strategies, fuel strategies, even race setups. And there is a red flag already. I'm not surprised, to be honest. So bear with us, folks, whilst we try and get that sorted out. Unfortunately, F1 is ridden with bugs. And, you know, it's a glorious game that we continue to play every season, every weekend. And, yeah. honestly, EA is the best game. We're totally sponsored by EA. We know that they are the best game developer out there, and we've never had an issue with their games at all, honestly. So bear with me, folks. We are going to restart the lobby. So bear with me. I'm going to pop you onto our starting screen. I'll be back with you as soon as we can, as soon as we've got the new lobby set up. well, for a game that we all know and love, we are going to come back and race once again. Lobby will soon be gearing up. I give up on words. Let's retire. Right, thank you for joining for the Tier 1 stream. I can't do English. Thank you and goodbye. No, people will be readying up soon and we'll be able to get going with Tier 1. Unfortunately for GGland, whilst he did put in a sensational lap of 0 seconds and 0 milliseconds, he will be put to the back of the grid. And unfortunately, both McLarens will be starting in the last 2 places on the grid. But Rico and Marth and Mix, all with a 5/1000th of a second gap between all of them for the top 3. This is going to be one hell of an interesting sprint race. 9 laps around Suzuka. And then it will be just 27 laps around Suzuka as well. I don't know why my brain went blank there for a moment. Bear with me, folks, whilst I just make sure that we are going to get going very soon, as I notice that Discord has decided to also cry and not function. I think we should be going very shortly. There we go. Drivers are now readying up. A full grid for a 9-lap race, 9-lap sprint race, 27-lap race. I am really losing the plot. Can we get into some racing so I can stop losing the plot, please? Thank you very much. Here we go. Hopefully this time, unlike qualifying, we had a driver ready up almost instantaneously and most definitely forgot to put on a setup. So hopefully, whoever that driver is, they have not forgotten this time. They are able to put on a setup. We're able to see that crucial information and watch them go. Let's have a look then. Don't care about the race numbers at all. There we go. We should be loading in just a moment. There we go. You can see all the grids, bottom right-hand side of your screen. All of them on the grid. Unfortunately, Panos got the fortune of the cars bopping up and down on the grid. Unfortunately, I have not got that good luck charm. But just from looking at the qualifying numbers, we are going to have a very exciting race. Now, the question I want to know, and the question I'm excited to find the answer to, is what tyres are drivers going to opt for? Of course, you can go for the soft compound tyres. They, without doubt, will last the 9 laps. But the question that then needs to be asked is, what is the strategy they're going to go for the race? Because, of course, the one stop, is that possible? Could they go medium soft or hard soft? Are drivers going to start on the softs, save the softs in the sprint race, opt on the mediums? So many different strategies are possible, and they'll all be answered fairly simply in just this one 9-lap sprint race. And hopefully we'll be able to get the engines going in just a moment as we watch all the synchronized stewards on the side there, all the marshals. There we go, folks. 5 red lights. Mercedes and Alfa Romeo on the front row, and away we go. It looks like a very good start for Rico at the front of the grid. Red Bull at the back as well with an insane start. Into the first corner, Marth almost trying to go for a move. Down the inside, he does with the soft compound tyres. He's ahead into the lead of the race now. Rico for P2, JPJ down into P3. He's got side by side with a Haas. Mix trying to edge close and get ahead. Unfortunately, slotted down into P4. We already have a yellow flag. GGland and Webby are collided at the back, I think, along with Soybean. As Rico now is going off the track, he's onto the side, he's gone down to P10. Marth now up into P1 with a 2-second gap and a virtual safety car before we hit the end of the first sector. Or just as we hit the end of the first sector, we have a VSC already. What has happened? I am so very confused. But already in the space of just a sector, Marth is into the lead of the race. And so many drivers have gone down the order. GGland and Wobby McQueen down in 18th and 20th, both involved in an incident. You can see in the middle of the first sector, yellow flags are out. Only 3 drivers are on the medium compound tyre. And whilst we have a moment, we have a drive-through for Marth, unfortunately, for speeding on the pit lane, and he has gone spinning off onto the curbs. And Marth is now down to P9. JPJ now takes the lead of the race, and I believe that is going to be virtual safety car gone, and already we are off into the chicane. And for the end of the first lap, we've already had so much drama, and an Alpine is going to come round the final corner. He's going to cross the line, and for the first lap of this sprint race, JPJ will take the lead with a 140.090. And unfortunately, Marth down to P16 after leading the race. He's now going to be in the pits to serve that drive-through as early as he can. And I think actually with that speed in the pit lane, I think that could be the end of the sprint race for Marth. We'll have to see in just a moment. Now for the twisting corners 3, 4, 5, the S curves in that first sector, treacherous curves. Although in the dry, you can still very easily lose traction, very easily hit the curb and lose the control of the car. And now for the first sector, JPJ with a 3.7 second increase on the first sector lap time. Of course, with that virtual safety car happening so early on. And as we come through the beautiful hairpin, probably one of the best corners on this track, in my opinion. And we do have to, unfortunately, to choose as well, just tumbling down the order. I think just coming through the hairpin, he's lost quite a few places. Mika still not quite reconnected to section. Mixed with a 1 second gap to pole position. And both Aston Martins are very close behind. In fact, Boosty is looking like he might make a move on his teammate ahead of him into the famous 130R. No one going side by side. Almost thankfully, no one is going side by side. It is quite a speedy corner, but very easy to make a mistake. And now the hunt is on. We got ourselves a DRS train enabled at the end of the next lap. Going from Mix and P2 all the way down to Rico. Tixnix just outside, just got inside. Oh no, there you go. DRS is enabled. I forgot. Virtual safety car will allow it to continue at the end of the second lap. So DRS train all the way down to 14th place. Soybean just 4.5 seconds off. We finally get Mika back into the lobby. Hopefully they can regain control of the car and not lose too much pace to the drivers ahead. But so far, JPJ, he's in a league of his own. 1.5 seconds is his gap to the drivers behind. We're going to stay on board with Boosty in the middle of this pack, all racing so close together. And almost 2 Aston Martins almost collided with one another. Rico's lost a position now to Mr. Go as he comes up into P4. Rico with a massive snap coming out of that corner. What is the name of that corner? Corner 9 does not have a name. But the unnamed 90-degree corner did spin Rico's car. The Chaos at AMR. It is indeed Chaos at AMR. And they are now split by the Williams. We've only got 2 pairs on the grid racing side by side to their teammate. We got the Alpha Tauri, Cyber, and their team principals, MZ Salt in P12 and 13. And we got McLaren, GG Land, and team principal Wobby McQueen, sorry, in P19. As it looks like Rico is really trying to get close in that gap. He does climb over the curbs. Goodbye, bollards. Not going to see those for the rest of the race. We come around the final corner. We have a yellow flag. And I think that is going to be for the Alfa Romeo, sorry, of Rico. I did see him just move down a few positions there, I believe. As the 2 Alpha Tauris get through now up into P11 and 10. But unfortunately, points are only available for the top 8. Points go from 8 points for P1 down to 1 point in P8. And so Panos is the last driver on the grid to be able to score a point with a yellow flag at the back of the grid. And I believe that as for the McLaren of Wobby McQueen, unfortunately, a very rocky start for the McLaren man. And is now sitting in P19, just coming through 130R by himself. Though the race is not over. 5 laps left of the sprint race, as he does set a purple second sector. Blistering pace for the second sector. But the race is not over, because you still have that 27-lap race still to come at the end of the session. Wobby, fastest lap of 128.834. Not sure the yellow flag was for him if he managed to put in that purple middle sector. But now Boosty is in a race of his own as the Greel Goat has a 1.7 second gap, 1.8 second gap now to the drivers ahead of him. And so Real Goat under a lot of pressure from Rico behind. Brizin closing in as well. Really, really close now. In fact, both Ferraris are closing in quite rapidly. Nearly 2 seconds splitting this second train on the grid. It's quite interesting to see, though. After qualifying, we had 3 drivers also close together. Unfortunately, Rico with a small mistake, as we're going to see a move, potential move from the Aston Martin. I only just saw that on the corner of my screen. Rico tried to go for a move on the real go. Unfortunately, not quite close enough. Brizzen trying to stay on the outside, avoid the carnage, avoid the chaos. And now coming through the S's, Rico's just trying to keep that gap close for a second there. I thought Aston Martin's lost the gears. This game is as stable as anything can be, honestly. It is quite astonishing that EA haven't messed up the game even more. But would you look at that beauty? 4 cars, all in a beautiful train. Panos just on the tail end. 7/10 behind, closing in as quick as he can, and there is contact there between the Aston Martin, the Ferrari, and the Alpine. Very slow on the exit. Hopefully no damage to all parties involved, as now they continue on, coming around and towards the spoon curve. 13 and 14, beautiful corners. 13 and 14, you can see the Williams taking a lot of curb, all of the cars taking a lot of curb. Of course, you don't want to take too much curb on those curves. If I recall correctly, please do correct me if I'm wrong, it is almost like you're surfing in that car. Climbing on those curbs, you can lose control very quickly of your car. Now the famous 130R, we're going to see Rico try and go for a move. He's not quite close enough, unfortunately. He does manage to mount that curb, capitalize on a brilliant exit now to the second chicane, and he is going to close that gap down, but is he going to be quick enough? As we see Boosty go through and ahead of Mix for P2 now. Boosty on for the second place, and the gap is down to 1 second. Boosty is on a rapid race at the moment with 3 laps left to go. He's just got 1 second to close to take the lead of the race as Rico gets through for P4. 3 seconds though. Could Aston Martin pull this off? Can they get a double podium in the first sprint race of the calendar? 2.5 seconds at the end of the first sector. Keep that on record, or keep that noted. We'll have to have a look at where he is in the next couple laps as we look at Brizzen and Panos. Now 2.5 tenths. This train is getting closer and closer together. Now coming into that hairpin. The Alpine almost trying to look for a move on Brizzen ahead, pushing each other along. And this is getting far too close for comfort, as we do have another change in order. No, it's not a change in order. It's the loss of multiple positions. Boosty with a mistake coming out of the spoon curve. He's now lost P2. He's now lost it all the way down to P14 out. The points. Rico is on for a podium position now, as Brizzen and Panos are now together, as Zitzi's lost a place to Panos. Coming through 130R. A sensational move by the Ferrari. Finds himself up into P6 as Wobby McQueen unfortunately retires from the race. He's retired just coming through a corner. I actually can't see what corner that is. I believe that is what is called the Dunlop curve. And we have a virtual safety car for the second time of this race. And it is towards the end of this race, with 2 laps left to go as we cross the line. Got a little bit of chaos happening on the track here. We got Rico into the pits, looking to go on some fresh softs. And that is it. Just Soybean and Rico onto fresh softs. The rest of the grid are going to stay on their current tyres. Of course, majority of them unfortunately went past the pits as the VSC came out. And there you have it, folks. VSC has ended, and DRS is back on. 2 laps of racing to go. As for some reason or other, a couple of positions have been lost there. Panos and Zitzi fighting very hard into the hairpin. Brizzen just losing out on a couple places as well. He went from 5th place down to 7th. Panos takes 5th place from his teammate, and Zitzi's up into 6th place now. Zoltz with a sensational drive so far. He's managed to climb all the way up to P8 after qualifying down in 15th place. Looking to score 1 point in this sprint race with a really good starting position. 4th row on the grid for the race. 27 laps to go. We have a yellow flag. Will not be a safety car this late in the race, but unfortunately that is for Marth, I believe, at the end of the first corner, actually. And it is now starting to get a little quiet on the grid. Unfortunately, there are some large gaps, but it is seemingly getting quite tight on the grid for P5, all the way down, actually. Hold on a minute. Everyone's managed to close that gap down into the 1 second gap. A lot of them are going to have DRS again for the last 2 laps. And it looked there for a second, MZ just with a beautiful drift out of the first corner, losing a lot of speed. And the house driver behind takes almost losing the car, having to avoid the AlphaTauri ahead as we have a retiree for Marth, unfortunately, in that second sector just before or just after Degner's curve. Unfortunately, out of this race, starting the 27-lap race now in 19th place. Panos now 3.5 tenths. He's going to come into the spoon curve. Oh, sorry, into the hairpin. Spoon curve is coming up next. And whilst he is on the hunt for P4, and he could potentially be on the hunt for P3 if he manages to somehow close that gap, or if Mr. Goat manages to close that gap for him. Of course, the toe can be quite effective. Now coming through that second long straight before you get into 130R. Panos with a 4/10 gap, depending on how much ERS he's got. He may be able to close this gap well before the chicane and get ahead out of the chicane. Is he going to be close enough? Unfortunately not. 6/10 behind. And we're coming down to the last lap as the 2 lead drivers, JPJ and Mix, are coming through the chicane and across the line for the final lap of this race. And we're going to stay on board here with Zitzi with this mid-pack battle for points. P5 and P6 are on the line as Fat Cat gets through ahead of Tix for P9. Just 1 position away from points. We're going to have a move from Panos into the first corner. He takes P4 from Mr. Goat and is now on for, what is that, 8 points? 5 points? I can do maths, I promise. Into the S's now. Panos on for P4. Brizen down to P7 still. And defending beautifully as best as he can. Zolt as well, defending as well as he can with a very, very fast cat behind. Fast cat in the Discord server. Fat cat on the game. I'm messing up my words. I do apologize, folks. But it is now a very tough race for Fat Cat. He's got to put in all of the work, all of the power, as much power as he can. There is a bit of contact there between Fat Cat and between Cyber Sid just behind. It's now or never for Fat Cat. Can he get the move done? Can he close that gap down? He's only got 1.5 sectors left to go. Can he score that crucial 1 point in this sprint race? But more importantly, that extra position gained for the 27-lap race that we're just about to have. Zolt's to the inside line, now to the outside line. He's going to defend from Fat Cat. He's going to have the pace, but Fat Cat down the inside. He's going to close that gap down into the chicane. It's going to be side by side now, and unfortunately Fat Cat with no good position for that battle. He's going to come out of the chicane just behind, and across the line goes MZ Zolt to finish the top 8 with 1 point in the bag. Fat Cat just 2.5 tenths back, but more importantly, right at the top of the grid in a race of his own, 1.5 seconds away from the rest of the grid. JPJ wins with 8 points. Mix in P2 with a 4-second gap behind. And Rico heavily under pressure, 4 tenths behind by with Panos. 10 places up, though, in qualifying to where he is now. Panos up from 14th place. An incredible drive by the Ferrari man. And there you have it, folks. 9 laps of sprint racing. An incredible qualifying session, incredibly clean, relatively clean. Unfortunately, the stewards are going to have quite a fun time with the number of contacts that did occur in that sprint race. And now for the race, this is where it's going to get really interesting to see who's going to have the strategy in hand, who's going to have the pace in hand, who's going to be able to come out on top and claim victory at this circuit. Of course, Soybean, our previous race winner at China, he has finished the sprint race, unfortunately, down in P17 with no points. So he has got 16 places to gain if he wants to try and win back-to-back for the first 2 races of the season. Webby McQueen, sorry, please do tell me what happened in that race. Unfortunately, we did see you retire to end what could have been potential positions for you as your teammates. Actually, I don't see your teammate on leaderboard. I'll have to see where he finished. GG line and P18, unfortunately. But hope is not lost. That was only a 9-lap race, 27 laps, minute and a half per lap. I think we're going to see a lot of drivers opt to go for the same strategy. Both McLarens had an unavoidable incident on the first lap. Oh, right. I did see the yellow flag. I did see the yellow flag come out. Unfortunately, couldn't switch to it. Interesting to note as well, Mix and the Haas managed to cross the line with just enough fuel. Along with Mr. Goat, 0.5 litres of fuel as they cross the line. Mix, perhaps it could be a skill issue, perhaps it's a mix issue. You know, it seems like a pattern that someone will be cursed with unfortunate luck. And you were cursed with it all season. Hopefully McLaren don't have it. They have quite a strong lineup. I say that everyone on the grid has quite a strong lineup for their Tier 1 drivers. Their Tier 2 drivers as well are quite strong. So hopefully it is just a small mistake just in that first sprint race. As we get ready now, 5 red lights for the full race. Alpine on pole, Haas and P2. Who's going to get the better start? And it looks like it's gone Alpine's way. JPJ with a beautiful move. He moves to the inside to defend off the Haas. And you got Rico just sitting on the outside there, trying to go for a move if he can. Waiting patiently for the drivers ahead. Mr. Goat down a place. We got Tix also down a few places. Mika down a few places. Techus down several places. So there is an incident already. Yellow flag in the first sector. And it's only Techus left at the back of the grid. Martha gone up a few positions. GG Land as well have gone up. A lot of positions are changing towards the back of the grid. And it is getting very tight between all of them. Rico now through up into P9. Already 3 places in just 2 corners. As you do see there, Aston Martin Alpha Tauri driver, sorry, going very wide now. Mercedes has spun round. That's going to be Marth. Unfortunately, spun all the way around. There's a yellow flag out for the second sector. Williams as well is yellow flagged. So much going on, and the top 5 are in a race of their own. Fat Cat now as well. 2.5 second gap behind, whilst the top 4, are in a race of their own. Fortunately. Oh, hold on a minute. Before I say anything, 3 wide, nearly 4 wide, coming towards into 130R now. We've got the Alpine, the Alpha Tauri, the Williams, and the Alfa Romeo all so close together. For a second there, I thought we were going to have a massive incident. Fortunately, never mind, take my words back. We do have an incident. Yellow flag, virtual safety car. Whose front wing was that? Wobbin McQueen with a severe collision with Mr. Goat has lost his front wing, I believe, and is now into the pits. Zitzi as well into the pits. Half of the grid into the pits. We've only just finished the first lap. And Techus out of the session, already retiring in the pits. Our first retiree of the session. And I'm so confused as to what has happened at the back of the grid. So many people so close together. Almost 4 wide going into 130R. Thankfully, no more than 1 driver retired. Very unfortunate that the Formula 2 champion has retired so early on in this race. No, it wasn't. It was shocking is the word I'll use for that one, Rose. I'm still just a little bit speechless as to what happened there. And, yeah, tyres, that... I've caught up now. I'm very confused. But not Panos. Boosty on the wrong account. Well done. Welcome, SKG Racing League. But there you have it, folks. The tyres at the end of the second lap as we get racing again. We got JPJ on the starting on the hards, Panos on the softs, into the chicane, now ahead of Rico into the provisional podium positions. He's got a 1.5 tenth gap behind. DRS is now enabled. They're going to try and fight it out. Panos to the inside, Rico to the outside. Who's going to win in this drag race? And I think Panos is comfortably going to stay ahead into the first corner now. As Mix also now takes the lead of the race into that first corner. I wonder if that was actually Adrian on the SKG account, not Boosty. Because, of course, Boosty is in the race, and unfortunately, Boosty is running in P14, opted to go on the soft compound tyres after a very early stop, looking to continue the race, but what is the word I'm looking for? Sealing his fate in a two-stop strategy. Panos now coming into that hairpin. He's trying to go for a move around the outside. He is quite close. Unfortunately, not quite close enough. He does get a good run. He's got the soft compound tyre. He will have the advantage for the next few laps. But is it going to be advantage enough to get ahead of JPJ, ahead of Mix, into clean air? He is all over the gearbox, almost pushing the Alpine along into the spoon curve. Now as we come down towards 130R, he is closing in very quickly, 1/10 back. He is going to try and go for the move. Could we see a Michael Schumacher and Alonso into 130R? Unfortunately not. But into the chicane we go next. It's not going to be a move down the inside. Defensive goes the Alpine. But it is very close running. Nearly 1 second splitting the top four. Also close together. The Alpine is going to try and go for a move now for the lead of the race. DRS is enabled for the back three. All of them trying to go for a move. The Haas is just sitting in the middle of the circuit. Alpine to the inside. Panos sitting calmly on the outside. JPJ into the first corner. Takes the lead of the race. And unfortunately, the Haas does collide with Panos there. Down into P3 now. Panos up into P2. So close between all of them. Rico managing to just stay clear of all the chaos happening around him and ahead of him. Fortunately, by some miracle and a half, no driver in this top four battle so far have received damage, or at least visually from what I can see, have not received damage. Fat Cat just on the outside of this battle, 1.7 seconds behind, a 1 second gap to Rico. And MC Salt, Tix, Soybean, and Mika to finish out the top 10. All are in a DRS train of their own. And unfortunately, all of those drivers from P11 down to P19 are in a race of their own as they pitted very early on for a second stint after that virtual safety car. This is getting far too exciting for the start of the race. Mix going a little bit wide there. Perhaps that could be a track limits warning for the Haas driver. And in fact, Rico just decided to go for a bit of a dip into the grass there. Unfortunately, this is not iRacing. You can't cool off your tyres in the grass. And it is getting very exciting now. Mix trying to go for a move down the inside. He's not quite close enough, but he is all over the gearbox of Panos ahead of him. Panos as well trying to defend. Of course, the three of them will have DRS again. Are we going to see a change in the race leader yet again? Yellow flag as Bobby McQueen retires from the race. Safety car, safety car. And Panos could not pull off the move, unfortunately, before we got the full course caution. It is a full safety car for the retirement of the McLaren team principal as Marth is not going into the pits. And I think we are potentially, I'm not too certain what's going on here, but JPJ and Panos just having a bit of tussle for the lead of the race. So close together between all of them. And again, so far an extremely exciting start. If we have a look at the positions gained, Rico, unfortunately, with a very poor start to qualifying. Oh, sorry, to the sprint weekend as Rico teleports in. What is going on here? I think we might be having some EA connection problems. Rico giving the positions back under safety car. I think EA as EA servers are seriously having a skill issue at the moment, and I think that is where our curse is at with at the moment. I think the order has been re-established now correctly. It has. far as I'm aware. Bear with me, folks. I think it's all good for now. Servers haven't quite ruined themselves just yet. So a lot of the drivers now are opting to pit. Unfortunately, yet the EA servers and Brazil does equal a horrible connection. As Panos is in the pits, Rico, Tix, Fat Cat, other Rico, and Soybean are all in the pits. If we have a quick look at the tyres that they have opted to go for. And we've got Rico onto the hard majority, onto the hard compound tyres. Marth still on the softs. Of course, he had to opt for a very early stop, unfortunately, with a very early spin. To choose, very unfortunate end for your race, my friend. Very unfortunate circumstances, but it happens to the best of us. And I believe, if I recall correctly, our head of control team, Ollie, mentioned that the next race is Australia. So hopefully, you know, to choose, perhaps Australia will be the comeback race of your life, and we're going to see you as the F2 champion of last season on the top step of the podium. Who knows? Anything can happen at quite a beautiful circuit. Chris Mix trying to overtake in the last chicane to either crash everyone or himself. It did look like quite a daring move for Mix, but fortunately he kept it relatively clean into the chicane. A lot of drivers, it seems like the chicane is their best opportunity to close the gap as quick as possible. And then after the chicane, of course, you need to have that excellent run out of the chicane right before the DRS is enabled. Right before the DRS is line, sorry. And get ahead of the competition. Mia, bear with us whilst we do try and get you an invite. Unfortunately, I do know that I haven't got you in my friends list, so I won't be able to invite you, but I believe Ollie is able to send you that invite. So a quick look at the stops. Top three are still yet to pit. You see JPJ sitting very far on the inside there. Curious position to sit the car, considering all the rubble and tire debris, I guess is the best word. If someone overtakes under safety car, can you report them if you are AI? If it's an overtake under safety car, the game will sometimes, if the game instructs you to pass someone, you pass someone. So if you think it's a penalty of the report, a penalty of the rules, or a violation of the rules, do report it anyways, as Mav says. But unfortunately, I think that is a game issue. To be honest, the game has a whole world of bugs as we've explored. But yeah, as Mav said, definitely report it anyways. The worst that happens is, you know, the stewards will probably look at it and perhaps just move it on as a racing incident. But it's more information for you. You know, you can learn the rulebook a lot more, perhaps help the stewards and help us develop the rulebook even further. Which, of course, we want that. We want to be able to improve the rulebook to the best of our ability to give you guys the best racing possible. And now the grid now bunched up. I have a good feeling this is going to be the end of the safety car run. And as we get towards 130R, and we have our first retiree, Mix, with a major skill issue, has gone into the wall, coming out of, or into the spoon curve. I'm so confused as what's happened there. Mix, please do tell what Mix issue that was. I'm very curious to know what happened there. Mix, our third retiree of the session. Pass driver running in provisional position for a podium at the end of this race. Now out of the race. Top two left to pit. 6 laps on the hards and the mediums. And there you have it, folks. You can see them all weaving as much as they can. They got to put as much heat as they can in the tires. Mix, please do be careful with your words. Mistakes can happen. And away we go already. JPJ with a hell of a start. He has gone flying. And he has got a whopping 1.3 second gap already from Mika. He's in a race of his own. Mix, use some other words, please. But Mika with a very bad start, caught sleeping, now heavily under pressure. Panos, of course, with the fresher tyres. Everyone else behind with the fresher tyres. The hards, although, are typically the slower tyres compared to the mediums. They certainly look fired up for the Ferrari man. He is very hot on the tail of Mika. Just 2.5 tenths behind. 2 tenths behind is Rico. 4 tenths behind is Zolt. All so close together. Everyone down to Cyber, all so close together. And into the hairpin we go. It is still close running. Marth now just going down the inside, managing to edge a closer and ahead now of Tick. Slots in just ahead on those soft compound tyres for the last point scoring position provisionally in this race. As Rico and Zitzi are having a bit of a tussle. Zitzi going through and down the inside. And here comes Soybean as well. Unfortunately, Rico just caught out on those hards. Of course, the advantage will not always go their way. Panos with a brilliant start, gonna try and go too wide around the outside, just goes off onto the curbs there. Now into the hairpin, he's gonna try and close in the gap down the inside. Can he stick a nose there? He can. He's now got the outside line into the next corner and coming out the chicane. Has he got the exit that he needs to take P2? Can he do it? Down the inside he goes. Rico trying to grab as much of a toe as he can. Panos now in a drag race, unfortunately not able to best the Williams. And now into the first corner, Panos remains down in the P3. What an excellent getaway for Panos. And now out to the first corner, into the second corner. He gets a beautiful exit out of the first corner. He's now up to P2. 2 seconds is the gap now to JP Joe. And can he be on the hunt as we have a Williams tumbling down the order into the gravel. Unfortunately, down into P13. Yellow flag again. Mika and Williams now out of the point as Panos is on for P2. Rico on for provisional P3. JPJ, the only driver in the top 10 still yet to box. We have Zolt now tumbling, no, Fat Cat tumbling down the order now. In that second sector, it seems like the second sector is catching out the most victims. The curbs are absolutely horrendous, taking them at the wrong speed, at the wrong angle. Your car will be sliding across them, and unfortunately, it is another victim of curbs, and it is another day and another DNF for Mix indeed. Unfortunately, Mix out of the race, lap 8. Or lap 7. And Panos, you can see that time already. He went from 2 seconds. He's now down to 1.1 seconds coming into the chicane. He is rapidly closing that gap down. We're going to see him in the fight for the lead of the race in just a moment here. As we go on board with Rico, who's got Marth right behind him. The soft compound tyres are really warmed up for the Mercedes driver. He's going to go for a drag race down the inside now. Smooth sailing for the Mercedes, and unfortunately there is nothing that the Alfa Romeo can do. Unfortunately, he's just going to have to sit there and wait for those softs to drop off a cliff. Interesting camera angle for the S's, but still ever exciting to see what Rico can do. As Mika retires in the pits. That'll be the end of the session for the Williams driver, unfortunately, after 10 laps. As MZ, Zolt and Fat Cat are into the pits as well. As into the hairpin we go. Panos just pushed a little bit wide, perhaps, as Rico gets through for P2 now. Panos on the outside to Soybean. Soybean with an absolutely incredible start to this race. 27 laps. Total 10 laps in, and he's already up into P4, fighting for a provisional podium position. And I think it is certainly going to be a possibility that the Red Bulls could score a back-to-back race victory, though it is still up into the air. 18 laps to go, 17 laps to go. Soybean down the inside before 130 yard does get through into the provisional podium position. Panos onto the charge. Unfortunately, not quite close enough, and my throat is starting to really feel the struggles of commentating. So much going on the grid. We've got a 4-car battle here. We're going to see the Mercedes and Marth on the soft compound tyres. He's going to try and go for a move down the inside, along with Soybean down the inside into the first corner. 2 drivers going for the move into the same corner. Marth up to P4 and Soybean now up into P2. A 1.3 second gap between JPJ and Soybean. And the fight is on as we have Vers now, the second Mercedes driver, I think, just tumbling down the order down to P14. Unfortunately, he's now back into the fight, just fighting with Mr. Goat now. The medium tyres are still going to have the advantage over the hards for quite some time, but Mr. Goat with a 9-lap-old hards is going to have something to say about it. There you have it now. Soybean within that 1-second gap. Soybean on the hunt for the lead of this race. JPJ, who was running in a league of his own, he had a 2-second gap. He was comfortably in the lead. He caught Mika sleeping off of the safety car restart, but now he is under a lot of pressure. DRS train from JPJ all the way down to Tixnix in P7. This is going to be very interesting. Good to see McLaren doing well. Welcome, Matt, to the stream. Unfortunately, McLaren, one retiree. Gigi Land is the second driver on the grid. He is in 9th place, still in a point-scoring position, and certainly a driver who has got some incredible pace. Here comes Soybean now, 3.5 tenths back. He's going to have the DRS advantage on JPJ, and I think we are going to have a change in race leader now as we come round the final corner and across the line. DRS is wide open for the Red Bull. Drag race down to the first corner. And it is going to be smooth sailing. Red Bull into the lead of this race now. JPJ, P2, after an incredible lead. But the race is not over. Of course, he is still on that first stint. He's opting to go for that one stop. Moth is definitely struggling on the softs, but we say struggling. He is still within that 1-second gap ahead. He has still got drivers behind him outside of that half second, so he's managed to pull enough of a gap away from the drivers behind, close in ahead. But of course, just 2 more laps to go before the softs really do start to drop off. And unfortunately, I can't see the tyre wear on the softs, but I can't imagine them being at all happy with how much pressure, how much wear is being put into them, how much speed is being put into them around such a treacherous circuit. And I say treacherous because the second sector has taken most victims. The second sector seems to be the worst sector of this entire track so far in 12 laps of racing. As we now come towards 130R, JPJ 1.3 seconds back. When I have a look at Panos in the middle of this race, in the middle of this DRS train, as Fat Cat Batman now receives a 3-second time penalty for track limits. It is getting very close between all the drivers, and I wonder who is going to be the first driver to pull the trigger. Of course, JPJ has to be the first driver to pull the trigger in pit. Of course, those hards are going to be at a massive disadvantage to the competitors around him. But equally, Marth, 8-lap-old softs. Matt saying 5 to 6% per lap. So after 7 laps on the softs, it should be around 35 to 72%. Thank you, Engineer Matt. I actually did not know that. So even 40%, 30% is when you start to lose grip, start to lose time. It's not until you reach 50 or 60% where you really feel the tyres struggle, and 75% is when you hit puncture territory. So Marth needs to think carefully. What strategy is he going to go for? Is he going to go for an early stop? I say early. Is he going to go for a stop very soon and opt to go for the medium to the end of the race? Is he going to go for the hards? I do believe he has served his mandatory stop already, so if he really wanted to, and if he got really lucky with a safety car, he could opt for another set of softs. It would be a very risky strategy, but hey-ho. I mean, these are some of the best drivers we've ever had. We've ever seen at Phoenix. And for seasons, time and time again, these drivers are doing stuff, are managing to pull the life of their tyres out by 30 laps further than you would have ever thought, because they know how to manage those tyres. Bean for the win. Well, let's have a look at what he can do. We're going to see a drag race now between Panos and Rico, the Alfa Romeo and the Ferrari, 2 sister teams fighting out. Panos defending to the inside and just managing to slot in ahead of Rico to defend from the Alfa Romeo. Rico on the hunt for his first race victory hit here at Phoenix. 14 laps on the hards and they'll hit about 60%-ish. Okay, that's interesting. So we have a yellow flag in the Well, it says first sector, but it lit up the second and third sector. Not sure what's going on with the game there, but 14 laps now. And Soybean, Matt, have you got any engineer tips and suggestions for how long the mediums can last? After 8 laps, the mediums of Soybean are at 31%. He has not managed to push them that much. And if after 14 laps on the hards are 60%, then the mediums surely must be 60% by lap 12 or something thereabout. In fact, we can have a look at Cybersid in just a moment as we come through towards 130R. Marth still on the hunt. Those softs around about 40 to 50%. We'll just call it 40% for argument's sake. Still on the pace, still on the hunt for P5. Rico is going to try and go for a move down the inside into the chicane. He almost has a collision there with Panos, manages to keep it clean. The two drivers so close together. Marth now trying to get a nose in this fight, and now with the DRS advantage, Rico is going to go around at the outside, down the inside, sorry. The Mercedes is going to sit nose to tail to the Alfa Romeo. Panos now loses P4. But Marth, that was incredible. He managed to stay right behind the Alfa Romeo, hoping to get enough of a tow to get ahead of Panos, but unfortunately not quite. 60% around lap 12 or 13 on the mediums. Of course, the safety car will prolong the tyres by 2 laps. So Soybean in a very lucky position. Early safety car has helped him pull those tyres tyre length, or extend the tyre length. Now with a 3-second gap, and all eyes are only on this top battle. It is the most interesting battle. We have 5 cars all so close together as Fat Cat now unfortunately retires in the pit lane. And now will be the end of his race. Top speed goes to Rico with a 337 km per hour at the end of the straight. I believe the DRS detection zone is at the end of 130R. Rico SK for the win. This will be interesting as he does push through and get ahead of JPJ now. Of course, those medium tires, those hard tires, as pointed out by Matt, will be slowly starting to really hurt, start to really feel that pain into the chicane. JPJ is going to be under an immense amount of pressure. Rico very rapid behind. Panos rapid behind. Marth still on the pace. 10-lap-old softs, 11-lap-old softs. Unfortunately, I can't see the tire degradation for the Mercedes, but he's managing somehow to stay on par with the rest of the grid ahead of him. Brizin just in P7 with a 5.5 second gap to the drivers ahead of him. He's in a race of his own with Takes just very close behind. Mick's out here calculating every outcome. Oh, sorry, not Mick's, Matt. Matt is honestly, he's the best trackside engineer. And now we come into the hairpin once again. 11 laps, left to go. And the Alfa Romeo of Rico, he's looking very he's got good pace on those hards. And of course, this should be a relatively simple move. Unfortunately, JPJ, he is going to have a lot of tire wear on those hards. He's going to struggle, especially in these next few corners. High-speed corners is where he's really going to feel the pain. And Rico now on the hunt. Alternate strategy to Soybean. As JPJ on fire into 130R. Manages to take the move on Rico SK. Now into the chicane. Takes P2 again. Those old hards are clearly not dropping off as much as we thought they would be. As he does peel off into the pits now. JPJ done with those hards. Is he going to opt for the softs though? 10 laps to go. Martha's proven that 12 lap on the softs is possible. Rico now, provisional P3, Brizin and Panos, P5 and 4 for the two Ferraris, scoring double points. One of few teams, only 2 teams looking to score double points at the moment. Provisionally, it is only the likes of Aston Martin and Ferrari. And to no surprise at all, soft compound tyres. JPJ, Marth, Zitzi, Vers, all of them into the pits, coming out the pits onto fresh softs. Soybean will pit on lap 19 to 20 for softs. Rico could potentially go to the end. Trackside engineer Matt, thank you for that information. That is very interesting if Rico can do that, because Rico, looking at the statistics that I can have on my telemetry information, Soybean, 11 laps in, 44%. Rico, 11 laps in, 40%. Tires are almost matching for wear, but of course the mediums will drop off a lot quicker than that of the hards, as we do see Rico just going across the curb. Perhaps that is going to be a track limits warning for the Aston Martin man there, as we go on board with GG Land. Coming into 130R, he's going to try and close that gap down as much as he can. He's going to watch the battle ahead of him. Tix and Brizen fighting hard for P5, both of them onto the medium compound tyres, and they will drop off quicker than the hards. Can GG Land recover as much as they need to? Of course, a very unfortunate start for GG Land. He started in last place as Rico gets through into the first corner. He's ahead of the two Ricos, and Ricos have fought together now, as Rico is through into P2 and SK, we'll stick with SK, goes in for P3. But GG Land needs to pit for fresh softs, or fresh mediums. But I think he is on the hunt. He's going to wait for the two drivers ahead of him to box. He's going to wait for the rest of the grid ahead of him to box, as the battle is on for a potential, I think top 5 is in the books for GG Land. If he gets his strategy right, if he pits at the perfect time, we might just be able to see GG Land finish in the top 5, or hell, I would not put it past him to get a podium. He is a very quick driver. Rico's tire data, so Rico in the Alfa Romeo, he is sitting at 39% on the hards. Rico SK is sitting at 42% on the hards. So both of them pitted at the same time. Only one is managing the tires better than the other. And do note though, Alfa Romeo in clean air, Aston Martin in dirty air. There we have it, folks. Our trackside engineer prediction goes to Alfa Romeo to take the win for this race, as we do now hit the 50% mark for Soybean. 4.5 seconds is the gap to Rico behind. Or to Rico. I can't get their names right at all. I'm struggling for the pair of them, as Tix is now into the pits. That is going to be when he's going to pull the trigger, come off of those mediums, onto the soft compound tyre now, I believe, for the end of the race. GG Land still has not boxed. 8/10 is the gap, as unfortunately AlphaTauri team principal has retired from the race, and that's going to be a full course caution for a safety car. And now, without a doubt in my mind, the top 7 are going to box. Every driver on the grid are going to be on the softs. It is going to be a sprint to the end of this race with everyone on the soft compound tyre. And unfortunately now, we have 6 retirees to choose very early on out of the race for Alfa Romeo. Wobbie McQueen, team principal for McLaren, out of the race. Very unfortunate race for McLaren, but sitting in 6th place at the moment. It is looking promising for McLaren, as Haas now in P10 and P18. Unfortunately, Mick's under safety car does retire the car. Mika as well into the pits, along with Fat Cat, both retiring into the pits. A very unfortunate race for the pair of them. Zoltz, I didn't actually see on the mini-map what happened there, but Zoltz retires from the race, and we have a full course caution. And about 1 sector left to go. Soybean in a beautiful position to not only get a free pit stop onto the softs, but to also not lose out on any track position. Into the pit he goes. Rico now through the chicane. He will also box, as will the rest of the grid, all the way down to P7. Unfortunately, GG Land, with only a 3-second time penalty, though will be very bad for his race at the end of this session, is beautiful for the pits because he will not serve it. Here comes GG Land now. Boosty just behind. I think JPJ, he's going to stay out. No, JPJ's going to go in the pits as well. So he's going to go for the fresh softs. Although he has that ability to take track position, he's going to opt to go for the fresher tyres. Now, this is going to be some difficult maths for you, Matt. But I am curious to know. Low fuel for the drivers. Of course, all of them will have max ERS, so they're going to be at the absolute fastest they have been in this entire race. Zitzi receives a 5-second time penalty, unfortunately, for speeding in the pit lane. How long will the tyres last before they hit the 30%, before they do start to lose that grip? 7 laps to go, so without a doubt the softs will go to the end. But at the pace they're going, I can't imagine them hitting anywhere close to 30%. I think they're all going to be able to complete this race on potentially the fastest tyres they've had for the entire race weekend. Hell, even they'll be faster than qualifying. I wouldn't be surprised if they are. Because, of course, as the drivers start to run more laps, more and more laps on the circuit, you're going to rubber the circuit even more. The grip's going to increase, and you'll be able to find more and more pace. And there is a bit of a bump there between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes at the top of the grid. Hopefully, if we go to Rico, he doesn't have any damage on his front wing. Tyres will hit 30% at lap 7 right now to sprint to the end. There we have it, folks. And Marth, honestly, that is very interesting. So JPJ opted to lose track position and go for the fresh pair of softs. So he's got 0 lap softs, and they will be 1 as we cross the line. Safety car will be in the next lap, I do believe. But Marth on the 3-lap-old softs. Now we know he's got the pace. This man managed to go 12 laps on the softs before pitting. So he certainly has the pace to keep up on those on hards. But this time, the tables haven't just turned. They've swapped entirely. Marth is at a massive disadvantage for 3-lap-old softs. And everyone else around him has fresh softs. And he's got a 3-second time penalty on top of that to serve. I'm very curious to know how this is gonna turn out. I'm both scared, I'm excited, I'm worried, and I'm thrilled. A lot of emotions are going through me at the moment. I'm sure a lot of team principals are very excited. I know Alfa Romeo are sitting there cheering on their driver, Rico. Hopefully he can score a race victory around a beautiful circuit. Such a tricky circuit as well. Perhaps Soybean, Red Bull team principal, is Myths. Hopefully he can secure a back-to-back race victory. Jakob, newly appointed Mercedes team principal. Can he score his first race victory as team principal with a reserve driver for his team? Or will Aston Martin, Fat Cat, who unfortunately retired from the race, he is the team principal for Aston Martin. He did reserve for an opposing team, but his driver, Rico, sitting in P4, could he somehow win from P4? Or myself, team principal Ferrari, sitting in 5th and 6th. Panos, the champion, from last season, sitting in 5th place. His teammate sitting in P2. He was the championship leader for 8 of the 9 races last season, and unfortunately just lost out by a few positions to win the championship last season. Or can McLaren manage to pull it out the bag, go from P7, skyrocket their way up to P1, win the race? Gigi Land scoring his first race victory in his Formula 1 career. And I'm just going to go through the top 10 Tixniks with a quite a legendary return. He is our F1 2020 champion of season 2, if I recall correctly, on for quite an incredible return to the grid, now reserving in for Haas. Boosty in for Aston Martin after an incredible drive for Mercedes last season in Tier 2. And then to finish out the top 10 with the safety car coming in now, we have Cybersid. Again, a new driver to the grid for Tier 1. Although in 10th place, every driver is on the soft compound tyre. He's on the oldest of them all. But anything is possible. And now, we're going to go with Soybean. 4/10 is the gap. When is he going to go? Let's pull up telemetry. Let's see, when is he going to pull the trigger? When is he going to absolutely launch it and catch everyone sleeping from behind? 14 drivers left in the grid coming out through the chicane. He is still on half throttle. He is weaving as much as he can. Put as much temperature into those tires. And he's going to take it all the way down to the line. So late he goes across the line. It is just a 3.5 gap. Every driver so close together. It's going to be a chaotic restart. And into the first corner. Soybean continues to still lead. Rico almost looks for a move. Tix still going on. Cyber is managed to stay in P10 at the moment. Still under pressure from JPJ behind though. And I'm struggling already. Soybean with a half a second gap already. The drivers behind Rico as well. Marth as well in a race of his own. Rico closing in as quick as he can. Panos unfortunately caught just a little bit asleep as he's got a 1.4 second gap. He is now passed by his teammate and he's almost getting passed by another driver. Gigi Land down the inside trying to go for a move on Panos. He's going to go side by side, rear wheel to front axle. And now going into the hairpin, he's going to try and go for a move around the outside. He's not quite close enough. Unfortunately, he's going to lose a position. Boosty now into the thick of it. There is contact between the McLaren and the Aston Martin. Hopefully they're still going. They are still going. No damage to either party as we now come through towards the spoon curve. I will get to the RS in just a moment as we have a 7/10 gap now between the top two. And GG Land is still fighting as much as he can. Side by side now, McLaren going into 130 yards ahead of Panos Veras. As we now have another fight just behind. Boosty is under pressure from JPJ. Unfortunately, JPJ just losing out, not able to get close enough to take position into the hairpin. He goes down the inside. There is contact between the Aston Martin and the Alpine. The Alpine comes off worse, unfortunately, as he goes tumbling down the order, and Boosty is down to P8. Across the line we go. Rico down the inside, no DRS enabled just yet, and he's on for a provisional podium position as Zitty gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That'll be the end of his race, and Marth is certainly struggling as he's sitting in P4, but he is still on the hunt. Half a second gap ahead, Brizen just 1 second behind. And Rico is still on the hunt. Soybean has not managed to get away with it. If we look at the ERS, Soybean is chilling with 50%, but if we look at Rico at 30%, he is absolutely using as much as he can, closing the gap as much as he can. Rico in a race of his own now with a nearly 1 second gap, behind Brizen as well, GG Land as well. All of them in a race of their own. The only battle on track in the top 10 really is these top two. Two friends off the grid, two massive competitors on the grid, always putting the challenge to each other. And we are now going to go into 130R for lap 23. Rico is trying to close that gap down as much as he can. Half a second improvement in the second sector. He's almost pushing that Red Bull along. He's going to try and go for a move. Could he try and go for a move? Unfortunately, not quite close enough. There is contact between the Alfa Romeo and the Red Bull. Thankfully, though, no spin as of yet. Rico now into this battle, 4.5 tenths behind. What is going on? This is getting so close. DRS enabled for the last 3 laps of the race. Soybean goes to the inside. Rico goes to the outside. Could we see a change in leadership? But the Red Bull with the optimum line, not quite. He does manage to keep it. Optimum line indeed. Maintains the lead of the race. Now Rico and Rico both into the fight together. Both Ricos are in the fight. 1/2 a tenth splitting the top 3. Marth 1.4 seconds behind. And don't tell me that's a full course caution. Yellow flag, yellow flag. I think that's another safety car. It's a virtual safety car. With 3 laps left to go, we have a virtual safety car. That really does save Soybean. It saves a lot of drivers. In fact, it helps Marth quite a bit. Still, 7-lap-old softs. And he is still going strong in P4. That 3-second time penalty is going to lose him at least 1 position. Unfortunately, GG Land. But fortunately for the Mercedes, with a 3-second time pen, is going to be like a cushion. And he's going to sit in P5 for Marth. GG can certainly still get 5th. I think 6th place. I think 5th place is still in the cards. I'm gonna be optimistic for GG Land. I think 5th place is still in the cards for him. Martha's just got to be really careful on those tyres, because they are going to drop off a cliff very quickly if he's not careful. Unfortunately, I can't see what the tyre degradation is for that driver. But come on, virtual safety car. Let's get racing again. This is a very long safety car, virtual safety car. There we go. And away we go. DRS is back on. And the race is on. Rico 2.5 tenths behind. Soybean, unfortunately, I think he's been the one caught napping, as he did have a 1 second gap. He's now down to 1/2 a second. Rico and Rico both 1/2 a second back. Marth 1.8 seconds with Brizen 1/2 a second back. This is getting very close now. The top three, also close together. Rico going wide there. He's now going to be under pressure as SK. I'm going to stick with SK. Goes through now into the hairpin and ahead for P2. This is not good for Rico, as he wants to be on the fight for P1. He wants to be on the fight for his rival, his friend, who is leading this race and is now in a battle with the Aston Martin instead. This is turned from very bad for Soybean to very good very quickly. Quick look at Brizin now coming into 130R. DRS is enabled, so he will have that main straight, that pit straight, to try and close that gap down to Marth ahead of him. It could be a potential on-track P4 finish for the Ferrari man. He just needs to keep up the pace. Marth losing time though. 2 seconds now to the drivers ahead of him. GG Land just 1.5 seconds behind. Rico does need to, or SK does need to push hard now. But I don't think he is. I think he's opting to try and defend. He's going to try and keep hold of that P2 finish. Let the Red Bull go on to take his back-to-back finish. But defend as much as he can to the Alfa Romeo behind. And for the last point-scoring position as Rico gets through ahead of SK, we've got a fight between Panos and a fight between Tix for the final championship point available on the grid side by side through the S's. Panos just manages to keep ahead of Tix. Of course, he's going to have the one-lap tire advantage ahead of the Haas driver. And I think it is fairly set in stone for the time. Touch wood. I'm not going to commentate curse this. I'm not going to finish that sentence. But here's a good note. Rico is not out of fuel. They are all still very positive in fuel, but Soybean is down to 15% ERS. Rico in P2 is down to 30% ERS, and SK in P3 is at 40%. SK has made a mistake, I think, but Rico on the hunt, 2.4 seconds. He could... There is potential. 1 lap left to go. If he can somehow pull off a miracle, close the gap down, 2.2 seconds. Soybean has got to avoid any mistake. He cannot get a warning. He cannot get a penalty. It is his back-to-back race victory on the line here. And both of them are under 10%. Both of them have that blinking red light at the back of their car. And Marth... Oh my goodness, hold on a minute. Why? How is Marth still going? He's lost position to Brizin, but he is still on the hunt. And I think P5 is certainly in the books for Gigiland if he can get this move done. Can he go down the inside now ahead of the Mercedes? He can. Gigiland now on for P5. An incredible drive so far for Gigiland. And he has gotten himself up into the top 5 as Cyber now puts in the fastest lap of 128.364. But we're going to go back to Soybean now as he come into... the spoon curve. And unfortunately, the driver just ahead of Soybean, our previous race leader, that is JPJ, who is now coming through 130R. But here it is, folks. Now just coming around 130R, now coming into that final chicane. Soybean, who started this race in P17, a horrendous start in this race. He has gone from basically the back of the grid to the front of the grid to win back-to-back races. Rico for P2 and SK for P3. What a race. And Gigiland down to the line takes P4. Oh, no, he doesn't. After penalties, unfortunately, down to P6. Boosty just managing to get within that 3-second gap to capitalize and score. And it's good, a very strong double points finish for Aston Martin. P3 and P5 for Aston Martin. I do need to breathe, but equally, what was that race? That was intense. That was insane. The final few moments, a very late safety car for the unfortunate retirement of the AlphaTauri team principal, turned this race from what was almost certain to be a very smooth sailing race for Soybean to an intense battle between 3 drivers for the lead of the race. And 16 places gained for Soybean, 14 places for Rico. Is insane to see. And I do agree with you there, Matt. I think Marth, very unfortunate strategy for the Mercedes man, popped him down to P7 after penalties. That unfortunate that unfortunate choice to not pit for the fresh softs certainly gave him quite the disadvantage as JPJ now comes across the line in P14. But even though it was a very unfortunate strategy call, he still managed to score some good points. Race engineer all week. Remember to tip your waitress. I'm out. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much. Honestly, I probably couldn't have done half that race without you. That data you gave me was crucial. But there you have it, folks. That I'm still quite speechless. But Soybean with another incredible, astonishing, out-of-this-world drive secures a back-to-back race victory for Red Bull and continues his lead in the Drivers' Championship. That was insane. Thank you very much, Matt. I did struggle at the very start there, but once things started to get spicy, things started to get really interesting, it was easy to catch up with everything. It's always fun to commentate Tier 1. Honestly, these guys, it's like I said at the start of the stream, these guys are some of the best drivers we have at Phoenix. They managed to pull off miracles that I never thought were possible. And we can see it here in this race alone. It really does show the pace, the skill that these drivers have, the fact that they're able to draw out those tyres for as long as they did and not lose a second in pace, not even a millisecond, not even a tenth of a second, and stay within that fight. So now, without a shadow of doubt, there will be some interviews. Or at the very least, I hope we get to have an interview with Soybean. So I'd love to know what is going through his mind for going from 16th place on the grid, or 17th place on the grid, to P1, to P-freaking-1. He won the race from the back of the grid. Right, bear with me, folks. I'm going to take a drink of water. I'll come right back at you with the interviews. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Soybean to the combox. Soybean, first of all, I mean, I'm speechless for how that race went for you. You, in the sprint race, first of all, just tell me what's going through your head. I'm curious to know.
Well, I was not expecting after that qualifying to be anywhere near the front, to be honest. I, I was in VC with someone and I said, I really need to just not invalidate this lap. And the next corner, I invalidate the lap. So I was pretty annoyed after that. And then at the start of the sprint, I got a great start. I went through everyone pretty much because everyone was like spinning and whatnot. And then I got tapped from behind, I think, by my teammate or something. I think they were quite laggy. So that was unfortunate, but obviously I was pretty annoyed after that. And then, yeah, I couldn't really do much in the sprint race, obviously. And I got an illegal overtake on someone who was spun out, so I had to pit to get rid of the penalty and whatnot. So sprint was pretty much a write-off after that. And then the race, I started on softs because I needed to make up places. And I got taken out again in the first sector in almost the exact same corner, which then made me even more annoyed. And then, just running my race pretty much. And then I went on to the mediums because I knew that even on the hards, you were going to be so slow towards the end. It wasn't worth it to make going to the end. So I was just hoping for a safety car, and then that's what happened. And yeah, just had to get away from Rico pretty much because he was my only threat. So, and then I think he went off once, and I just used all my ERS and ran away. So yeah, there were a few bit of bumping throughout the race, but still a good race. And what, P17 to P1, yes, I'd say it's pretty good. So I think we extended the gap as well. Would have been nice to get points in the sprint, but it is what it is, and unfortunate that this game still isn't great with illegal overtakes and deltas and whatnot. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It'd be nice if we could have a race director. But
yeah,
still,
it would.
I don't think a nice race is the right word. That was insane to go from P17 to P1. I certainly did not expect it. I think our track engineer Matt, who was helping me in the chat, was saying that Rico seemed to be mathematically, in terms of the tire advantage, was looking to win that race. But that late safety car is really what saved your bacon, and I think really secured that race victory for you. And that is a back-to-back race victory for you. Round 1 at China and now round 2 at Japan. I think the
Yeah, I
question...
mean,
Go on.
hopefully no one's got any dirt on me, but I don't think I did much wrong, so they shouldn't do. But yeah, first 2 races down. I don't know what's next, but I didn't really like China at all, but I still managed to win. So we'll just keep going, keep hoping the Deem doesn't show up because I'm screwed if he does. And I mean, maybe I could race him. We were racing the other day, but anyway, just hoping to keep it going, and hopefully my teammates can start scoring a few points as well because we need the constructors as well. I'm carrying a little bit at the moment, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, the next race is Australia. Is that a strong circuit?
I absolutely hate Australia.
Well,
It's
considering that you disliked China and still won it, I've got hopes for you yet to win it.
Yeah, hopefully we can do something, but that track is just awful to drive. So um, I'm not looking forward to it anymore. You've just told me that now. I'm not looking forward to it, but we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Well, insane is probably the least descriptive word to describe it. I mean, that was an incredible drive by you. Rico was on fire. He looked like a proper competitor towards the end of that race. Both of you depleting as much ERS as you can, but you managed to just edge further away, sector by sector, corner by corner, and luck doesn't even come into this. I think you managed to pull off the perfect strategy to take the lead of the race. So congratulations to you. Did you have an engineer for this race, or was it just all by yourself?
Nah, yeah, I was just by myself. I was talking to a friend actually. I blamed him for me invalidating qualifying. So, but yeah, just by myself. And I think I got held up by my teammate in the pits once, but there was nothing I could do anyway. He was ahead of me. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it would have been nice to have an engineer, but I still managed to do well without it. So,
Doesn't seem like
yeah,
you need it. You won the race without one.
yeah,
Well, I look forward to see what you've got in store for us at Australia. It may be not your best circuit, but you've got a lot to do. You got to try and get that triple race victory under your belt for the start of the season. Get that hat trick.
I'll do the Max Verstappen. I'm parking my cheeks in his car, so maybe we can see what we can do. Win every race except one.
We'll have to see. Awesome. Well, congratulations again. A very well deserved, more than well deserved, a very much perfect strategy race victory. I am certainly looking forward to Australia. You best put in that practice because no pressure. I want to see you on that top step of the podium.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week.
See you next week. Right, let's have a chat to our P2 finisher, Rico. Rico, welcome to the Combox. First of all, I mean, you were pretty much on fire. That was some insane racing from you. You got some really good strategies for your race there. And towards the end, unfortunately, you got stuck in a battle, Rico. Both of you, Rico and Rico, stuck in a battle for P2. And that really ruined your chances for P1. Tell me, what's going through your mind? How was that entire session?
Well, at the start of the sprint, I had no force feedback. So I had to alt tab.
Oh,
and
no.
I lost like 9 positions. Then I got taken out by Zitzi or something. Then I was at the back with Soy Bean. Then I mistakenly pitted because I thought that was a safety car and not a virtual safety car. So I pitted for fresh softs, and then I found out really quickly that it was a virtual safety car. So I lost another 2 or 3 positions. And the main start, I gained like 7 positions because everybody crashed in front of me. Like that was kind of funny. Um, yeah, and that's it. Basically, I just made good overtakes, tried to not hit anyone, just yeah, drive safe.
Wow, it seems like you drove very safely all the way up into P2. 14 places gained from the start of the sprint race to the end of this race. And in 27 laps, you gained 14 places and came so close to winning that race. I mean, what was going through your head in that last safety car? Of course, you pitted for the softs just like everyone else. You had an equal tyre advantage to everyone else. But it didn't seem like, unfortunately, you had quite the pace to be able to keep up a soybean, or at least get ahead of Rico.
Yeah, Rico was like fighting me while we were both trying to get P1, so that was not smart of him. So we lost a lot of time. And yeah, basically we gave Soybean the win, but he deserved it. Let's be honest, like he had a great race.
16 places, yeah. I mean, you both had a great race. If you won the race, he got P2. Both of you gained 15 places. I would have called that equally as good.
Yeah, Rico was, by the way, quite laggy. Like he gave me front wing. Like it was either a brake check or it was like just the lag that like we were going into the pits and like he was on the line, and then managed to brake again, so it lost my front wing, so I had to repair and lose another 2 or 3 places. I can't remember.
There,
And I had to
there
fight
certainly
back.
was a little bit of desync on the server, but I'm sure
Yeah.
the stewards are going to have a fun time with the numerous number of reports they'll have to review.
I saw a lot of reports already.
I'm not looking forward to see how many reports the stewards will have to look at. But anywho, it doesn't
I
matter
saw
now.
one on Bean as well, so
Ooh, that'll be interesting. Well, the race victory could go your way, and that'll be certainly an unfortunate end to the weekend for Soybean, but we'll have to see what the stewards decide on Tuesday. But you've got Australia next week. So Soybean earlier mentioned that this is a track that he is not a fan of. What about yourself?
I've never driven on it, so I have no idea.
Well, that's a wonderful start. Well, you got yourself a week to put some practice in. Hopefully, you can pick up the pace, beat Soybean, win your first race, and end his streak of wins so far in this season.
Yeah, it would be fun. If he didn't have the last safety car, I would have most likely won.
Matt, the perfect race engineer that anyone could ask for, was switching between. It went from going in your favour towards Rico's favour to win the race if that last safety car didn't come out. So you almost had it in the bag, but we'll have to see. You know, you got to put some practice in for Australia. Like I said, Soybean, I expect him on the top step. But I also expect to see you fighting as hard as you can to get that first race victory, that very well-deserved, still yet to get race victory in your Phoenix career.
I'll try my best.
No pressure. Well, congratulations again. Very well-deserved P2. I know Alfa Romeo are probably absolutely screaming their heads off with another good points finish. And I look forward to see what you've got in store for us for Australia.
Yes, thank you.
And we're going to have one more interview to finish off the evening. Unfortunately, Rico SK is not in the waiting room, but we can have a chat with our P6 finisher, GG Land. Welcome to the Combox. First of all, a very, very unfortunate start for you and your teammate, of course, after qualifying. The bug that sent you from the back of the grid to the front of the grid did then eventually send you to the back of the grid again for the start of the sprint race. But you managed to claw your way back up into a very good points finishing position. Just tell me your thoughts on that whole race. How did it go?
I mean, where do I even start? It was a whole roller coaster. I haven't really processed what happened in that race. Basically, yeah, after that inconvenience in quali, which left me and a teammate at the back. I mean, just straight into the sprint, unavoidable incident, turn 1, into the race, unavoidable incident, where there was kind of an incident with the Williams, which will probably be reported, but basically gave both me and my teammate damage again on lap 2 of the normal race. And then we were kind of both just fuming a bit at the back of the grid with hards and while we retired. But then we were kind of just, I mean, I was in a VC with them and everyone was just kind of like fuming and just talking and about all the incidents and things, and I was just sitting there quietly, and I was just driving, and I wasn't even focused on the driving, and, and then I realized at the end of the stint that I was actually putting in a really good stint, and safety car came at a good time, so that kind of saved me, and then I just did my best to bring it home. Yeah.
You were looking
It was
quite
pretty
strong for a
decent.
P5 finish there. Unfortunately, Boosty just managing to close that gap down within that 3 seconds to you, losing that P5, but still a very good points finish. And I have to say, quite an incredible drive from you, especially considering that, you know, as you mentioned, a very frustrating and unfortunate start to the race weekend, starting at the back of the grid. But you've got Australia around the corner, and it's not going to be a sprint weekend, so you will have full 18 minutes of qualifying. So one lap won't determine the future for the rest of that weekend. What are your chances at Australia? What practice have you done around that circuit?
Oh well, I mean, I like Australia as a qualifying circuit. I really like the fast corners on it. In previous races, I mean, it's been nice sometimes. I've had quite a few wet races there. I think it's a pretty strong track. I mean, at this point, I just don't want to be involved in incidents. I want to be driving my best the whole time and having clean fights. Yeah, I just hope for some fun there, because to be honest, I was kind of alone for most of this race, and then a bit of excitement at the end. So yeah, just hope for some good race, and pace wise, I might be good. So I don't know. We'll see.
Awesome.
It's kind of unknown.
Well, I am certainly very excited for that race. I mean, as you saw in qualifying, it was 5/1000ths of a second between the top three. So hopefully we'll be able to see your name up there in that window of thousandths of a second between the top sitters. And
Yeah, apparently had a 0-second lap.
yeah, I mean you were insane. You're on fire. But no, still a very good race for you. A very unfortunate race for your teammate and your team principal, Wobby McQueen, retiring through that race. But I think in all bad things come to an end to a good thing. So I'm going to say that McLaren will hopefully have some good fortune at Australia. I'm not going to jinx it, but I think it is going up from here. I think you guys have got this. So congratulations again, P6 finish. Unfortunate race, but still good points for the team. And I think you guys are going to recover from here quite comfortably, to be honest.
Thanks for your support.
No worries,
and thanks
buddy.
for stream also.
Congratulations again, and I'll see you next week.
I see you, mate.
And that will be it for the interviews, folks. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I'm still quite speechless by that race. I'm still quite incredibly surprised by what Soybean can do. I think the first race was going to be an outlier. I thought we were going to have another fight for P1. We certainly had an exceptional battle for P1 here at Suzuka. But again, Soybean in the Red Bull, he pulls off another another strategy masterclass, and takes home that race victory by 2 seconds, or 1.7 seconds as they cross the line, actually. So, a very well-deserved. Red Bull are looking very strong for this season, and I am very much looking forward to see what we have in store at Australia. Thank you, everyone, for joining me for this Tier 1 stream. I will see you all next week. Oh my god. Until next time.